Donc bonjour à tous, on se retrouve donc à la fin de ce stage VCQB instructeur. Donc on est à Kansas City dans le Missouri. Donc on a passé la semaine avec donc Steve et moi-même en tant que stagiaire pour ce cours VCQB. Donc c'est un cours que j'avais déjà suivi en 2023 qui m'avait permis d'être certifié donc instructeur VCQB. Il y a un refresh qui est à faire tous les 2 ans de manière à pouvoir suivre l'évolution, les tendances, tout ce qui est statistique, etc. Et donc on en a profité pour faire certifier un nouvel instructeur au sein de Chimera dans la personne de Steve. Donc on est ensemble aujourd'hui avec William Petit, donc qui est le fondateur de la société Centrifuge, qui est le créateur aussi du VCQB dans sa forme la plus pointue. Et donc le but c'est d'échanger un petit peu autour de ces sujets-là, de manière à pouvoir éclairer davantage l'histoire un petit peu derrière le VCQB et qu'est-ce qui a amené cette méthodologie à être aujourd'hui la méthodologie la plus choisie au niveau des unités américaines. Donc Centrifuge, c'est une société qui fait près de 100 contrats annuels à l'année, qui est choisie par toutes les plus grosses agences, tout ce qui va être FBI, Homeland Security par exemple, différents SWAT, tout ce qui est équipe de recherche, etc. pour les unités qu'on peut citer, et donc d'autres unités aussi sur lesquelles ils doivent rester silencieux. Et donc on va basculer en anglais, et dans tous les cas cette vidéo sera sous-titrée. So Will, thank you first for hosting us for this VCQB instructor class. It was an honor for us. We are in touch for more than 2 years, I think, 3 years now. It means a lot for us. So we just attended the first class as a VCQB instructor trainees 2 years ago. Then the ballistic shield instructor, and it's this year a refresh for me and a certification for Steve. So first, can you introduce yourself?
Okay,
Who
all right.
is William?
Yeah. So my name is William Petty, and I'm the owner of Centerfuse Training here in the U.S. I'm a 23-year law enforcement officer, having worked in various roles at the Academy, Firearms Instructor, ERT, etc. So still on the job, and also running Centerfuse as well.
Okay, long story short.
Long story short.
And what about Centrifuge?
Centerfuse started 8 years ago, and it was built out of a need to provide updated law enforcement tactics for using a unique data-driven approach. So we found that the law enforcement tactics that we were employing, when you look at the data, were not working under opposition. And they needed to be refreshed. And instead of taking the legacy approach of just using my myopic view or a sample size of 1, we decided to take large data sets and then from that find very distinct patterns and trends and address those patterns and trends with drills specifically designed to reduce or lower risk and improve efficacy for the officer.
And there is nothing available at this moment when you think about creating a company regarding the VCQB material or just the police officer training in general?
Yeah, so the material at the time was the profession at the time was very legacy or very behind in times, and the response for specifically thin-skinned cars and vehicle working was just get off the X or get away. And there are times in law enforcement and in other capacities that is not an option to get away. So we took the approach of, hey, let's problem solve this until we can get to something better. And we saw that law enforcement was attempting to apply small unit tactics from the military. And that does not always translate to an officer who's solo or maybe 2 officers at a time trying to problem solve a very dynamic environment. Also, the engagements for us are unique in that they are high intensity, short duration, and close distance. So it's not that I'm being attacked by an insurgent force 400 meters away. It's somebody that's a car length or 2 car lengths away. And so we see those average time frames are 12 seconds and less. Now you can have some that are longer, you can have some that are shorter, but the 12-second was the national average. And so we had to provide our guys with a solution that worked within that. So we have a saying, don't give your guys a 30-second solution for a 5-second problem. And that's what we were seeing. We were seeing very complicated or overbuilt solutions to where the officers did not simply have the time or the logistical means to solve that within the proximity or the modality of what their fight looked like.
Yeah, and what's actually make the difference between Centrifuge teaching VCQB material in general patrol officer or instructor, and the other company who can run VCQB or vehicle-based class or kind of VCQB?
Yeah, there's certainly many companies out there that run vehicle tactics, and there's like all things, there's some that do it better than others, right?
Always.
What separates Centrifuge from a lot of other programs that are offered out there is one, VCQB is a registered trademark, right? So we submitted that to the U.S. Patent Office, and they're like, hey, it's the material that you're presenting is unique enough to have a registered trademark. The other thing that that has really put Centrifuge at the forefront is the amount of data, resources, and the clientele that we have. So we're very lucky to be very busy with a lot of federal, state, and local agencies, running just about 90 classes a year, with about half of that being contract work. So we're very fortunate. Yeah,
that's a lot.
And you know, the market and the consumer speaks for itself. So it's not about me saying like, hey, this is a quality product. The market is showing that
it works.
That it works, and not only does it work, it not only are they saying it works, we know it works, right? So we've had over the last 8 years, we've had 161 officers who have specifically been to the class and then specifically been in gunfights around vehicles, and all have won. So we're batting 1,000, you know, as we say in America.
Yeah.
So we've got a good track record there. The material has to work opposed, and so the big I think divergence from what Centerfuse is offering versus simply coming out and running drills on the range is that we not only are taking large data sets to say like, hey, this is working and this isn't, but also we are then pairing that with other elements that provide transferability from the range to like actual application.
Yeah, it's something we hear often at Centrifuge, the data-driven approach, and what it means for you and why it's make a big difference.
Well, first of all, data-driven does not mean that we don't possess or don't value experience. Experience is important. Everyone who's instructing needs to be experienced, but we believe that we should not build an enterprise-wide solution off of a sample size of one. So medical doesn't do that, engineering doesn't do that, right? Like when we look at law enforcement, often we're the only profession that takes one shooting or a sample size of one or a personal experience, and we're like, hey, this is now the solution. So what we are doing is we're looking at as many officer-involved shootings as we possibly can, and there's quite a bit here in the States, unfortunately. So best estimates, we average anywhere from 8,000 to 10,000 officer-involved shootings a year, and you know, with some regions of the U.S. seeing more than others, obviously. But what we do is we try to take as much available data as we possibly can, and what that does is it provides us numbers, and then as we look at those numbers, we say this trend is important enough for us to figure out, why is this occurring? How does it affect my people? And then what is a viable solution that is logistically scalable, right? So if I come to you and I'm like, hey, this solution is this solution is a great solution, but you can't employ it at your agency because it's too logistically heavy, then that doesn't help. It never reaches, it never benefits or reaches the guys. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to look at these large data sets to say, hey, we see a high number of officers who are ambushed while inside vehicles. So there's a pattern of behavior that exhibits, right? So we know that engagement time is less than 5 seconds, and we know that engagement threat is 16 feet and in. Or 5 meters, right? Ish, right? 5 meters or ish and in. And so that allows us to start to build out very specific drills for this problem that we're encountering, right?
Yeah. And it works, basically, as you just told us before.
Yeah. So when we look at this, what we're trying to do is we're trying to stack statistical probability in your favor, right? When we talk about something that is a tactical advantage, what we're trying to say in layman's terms is, if I stack enough of these advantages in my favor, I will probably have a win. right? Now, it doesn't guarantee you a win, but it gives you a higher probability. So what we're attempting to do through large data sets is know the exact statistical probability and balance that, or use that to examine other TTPs, other techniques, tactics, or procedures. And then that allows us, instead of me just using a sample size of 1 or my myopic view, it allows me to then take a critical look, not an emotional look, but a critical look to say, okay, this might be a better approach, as we're seeing a higher probability towards that. So,
yeah. And actually, what's your vision, or what's your perspective regarding the average training for the police officer in the US? How it's run, how it's built normally for the thousands training you just met in the past?
Yeah, it needs to be better, right? I mean, we can always do better. Not only do the officers deserve better, but the public deserves better as well. So the way that we go about that is understanding biomechanics, human performance, how people learn. So that's why we get into automated versus cognitive responses. That's why we get into open versus closed skills, things like that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to build a better product in a shorter amount of time. Now, we're not making super cops, but what we're seeing are better end user results in shorter amounts of time. And it's not magic, it's just basic sports science and what we know about how we learn and build schemas, sort of blueprints that the brain then
and works under stress.
Yeah, and resorts to under duress. So
it's something you put a huge amount of time on, was the human performance approach. Why it's so important for you, and what it means for you, human performance factor into professional training?
Well, the human performance piece is important because if we can get better results in the same amount of time, then we need to do that, right? So the other thing on this is that we're seeing a lack of understanding of human performance then gives us poor results. It'll do great here on the range, but it gives us poor results in open skills formats, right? Yeah. So for example, we talked about this and saw this all week with reload, right? So workspace works great if I'm standing on the square range. Now I'm inside of a vehicle, or we have a disparity of height where you're standing and I'm in a kneeling position, and I come back to that workspace. We see muzzle management issues, things like that. So in order to avoid that, at the very beginning, we understand human performance, how people automate versus how people make cognitive decisions, and then we train to those, avoiding the muzzle orientation issues that we're seeing in these compressed environments, working between two cars and things of that nature. So, yeah.
So it should probably be a lot of work to stay updated regarding all the...
It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of big words, man. I don't understand them all. I do a lot of Googling, right? There's some great books out there that really help break down sports science in a layman's format. But the reality is that if you personally, or you want your program to grow, you have to read. You have to be a voracious reader. You have to be constantly working through material that is directly related to, to what you're doing, right? Yeah. So, I mean, and I don't mean like reading like about fantasy or, The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. I mean, like, hey, let's read, stuff, Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. Let's read some human performance books. Let's, things of those nature, right? Yeah. And not all of it's going to apply, but you cherry pick the stuff that you're like, hey, this is really relevant to this POI, or this is going to reshape how I introduce barricades. Yeah. So understanding the myelination process, for example, right? So we used to introduce barricades at the very end of the firearms block or the academy portion. And now we introduce it at the very beginning because we want to build off that natural response of, hey, I need to put something between me and the hurt. And we are getting a better product by the time that person graduates the academy. It's not that person's not perfect, that person's not a super cop, but what we are seeing is that they're much more comfortable working weird angles, rakes, curves, etc., that traditionally cops were not getting a lot of reps on. And I didn't have to add time to the academy. I just took barricades, and instead of trying to fitted into the very end and giving them a very limited amount of reps. We simply just put that into the front end and myelinated that response. So part of that is just understanding how people learn, right?
Yeah.
People are gonna, reps work, so.
You talk about reading and your responsibility as a trainer to stay updated. And what's about your personal improvement and your personal growth regarding instruction? We often say sometimes trainer, but lifetime student.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you have to grow, right? So I'm fortunate that I'm still on the job, and I'm lucky enough to go to 3 or 4 high quality classes a year, kind of like what you guys are doing here. And that's necessary, right? Not only is it necessary to see new material, new ideas, but it's also important to see how people are relaying that information and how they're formatting or structuring the class. And that's, you know, my growth as an instructor has improved a lot. The VCQB instructor course is 12 years old this year. Yeah. And, you know, VCQB instructor class number 1 was wildly different than what you see today.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. And each year it grows. Each year we find better ways to tweak the drills, better ways to convey the material. We'll see new statistics or new trends that arise that we have to address. We grow as instructors, obviously, so you know our ability to present becomes better. It's just, I mean, like all things in our profession, if you're applying yourself, whether you're a plumber or a doctor or you know, an instructor, like there should be that growth. And unfortunately, in law enforcement, a lot of the times we see that the growth stops after a guy's becoming the instructor, and they're not pursuing classes, and they're a very typical government employee. They're very happy with where they're at, and there's not a high demand to improve. And that is the interesting thing when you compare the government versus the private company, because on the government side, the cadets or the people that are there for in-service or for training have to listen to you. So it can be as great or as terrible as it needs to be, right? Just whatever, right? Yeah. On the private side, if you're not constantly improving and evolving, then
it's all about the market.
Yeah.
The traction.
Absolutely, absolutely. Which you know.
Yeah, definitely. But what you think about the trainers or the instructor who never attend any classes on the past 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, it's, you know, they're doing a disservice to them. They're doing a disservice to their people, and they're doing a disservice to the public, really, and that's who suffers the most, right? Because at the end of the day, the general catchphrase is training to the lowest common denominator has ruined our profession. But I believe it's lowest common denominator instructors have ruined our profession, because lowest common denominator instructors train, manage, and run those programs that then produce those individuals giving us those results in opposition, right? And so you owe it to not only yourself, but your people and then the public to give the best product you possibly can, right? And so that comes from professional growth, where you're going to classes, and it also comes from personal growth. You have to be reading, you have to be researching, you have to be using the internet for more than just entertainment and for research, and that is only going to benefit. That's a trickle down effect, right?
And we talk a lot about VCQB, but in Centrifuge, you're not only doing VCQB, so can you talk a little bit about the other?
No, they're secret. I can't talk about the other secret. No. Yeah, so we do quite a bit of low light. Yep, low light instructor. We do active killer interdiction, both end user and instructor level classes. We do patrol tactics instructor. We just had our new vehicle interdiction facility open up, which is pretty cool. So we run quite a bit of work out there on vehicle interdiction techniques. So live mobile opposition, what does that look like? How do we stop cars that don't want to be stopped? We've got basic firearms instructor. We've got just a high risk stops instructor. We're fortunate to have a very experienced and diverse cadre that allows us to run so many, because we've got topics that I know nothing about, but I'm lucky to have coworkers that are very, very experienced. So Blake, with us running Ballistic Shield, I know nothing about Ballistic Shield, but he does a great job. I like how you're like, no, you don't. Yeah. So I know nothing about Ballistic Shield.
It was impressive.
Yeah. Dan with Red Dot Instructor, he is just phenomenal on that platform. So Kirk running patrol level breaching. Again, I'm not a breacher, so that is the beautiful thing about having a team versus one guy who's trying to do no one instructor or one dude is going to be good at everything, right? I'm going to teach you how to do this. I mean, there's definitely some very competent individuals who are very diverse, but you're not going to be able to teach everything, right? And so Josh, who teaches our Urban Sniper program, I have no idea about Urban Sniper, right? But that's his job, and he's very good at it. So that is the benefit of all of these very experienced individuals coming under one umbrella with the same goal and the same mission and the same format too. It's all, hey, we're all experienced, but we're going to look at the data and then use that to address the trends that we're seeing, and then that manifests itself in the drills. So
moving in the same direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And what about your new facility?
Oh, it's so cool, man. So wrecking cars on purpose, man. We so the new facility out there in Reno, we'll get you out there. We've got 2 big, huge live fire bays. We've got 4 miles of paved track. At any one class, we'll have 20 consumable cars, which means we'll start with 20 cars, and then we'll end up with like 3 that work at the very end. And we've got a source to where those cars go away, they get replenished, and then we continue to run that cycle. So we've been running, we've got a couple of sizable contracts, government contracts that keeps that place busy. So it's good.
Okay, and let's talk a little bit maybe about mental clothing. Mental clothing, yeah.
Mental clothing, right?
Everyone we are proud to distribute in France and in Europe, so that's come from you.
Yeah. So one of the things that we found with clothing, and I've been at this now for 23 years, and I started off wearing 511 and proper and the things that everyone did, right? We found that the workwear fell into kind of 2 categories. One, it was very low cost and low budget clothing that you wouldn't wear it daily, right? And so it kind of fit like a trash bag, The other end of the spectrum is very high level clothing. So you look at very elevated brands. And so we were trying to take things from Marmot, Arc'teryx, et cetera, that were really meant for mountaineering and packing light, et cetera, and apply them to workspaces like this, right? And they are building things so that they're extremely lightweight and you can pack them. But I don't need that. I'm not climbing a mountain, right? So what you're seeing with that lightweight stuff is, as I start to crawl around on the cars and work on the range, and we're shagging targets and steel and glass, it rips. And then you have $600 pair of rain pants that you just ripped open. So the goal was to meet in the middle. We wanted a price point that was manageable. But clothing that was purpose built for actual workwear and didn't wear like a cardboard box, right? Like, I mean, when you're outside, work can suck, right? But your clothes don't have to. So we wanted functional clothing that was purpose built for the end users, so that pocket layout, where we're reinforcing things, trying to source and use the highest quality materials, but not from a standpoint of I need to pack this and go mountaineer with it. It's workwear, right? It's Carhartt for gunfighting. Focus on what's matters. Yeah.
And into the near future, or maybe the far one, what are the perspectives for Centrifuge and the evolution, the next step?
The next step, well, we're about to colonize Mars, I hear. So we'll need to, yeah, let's do. We're gonna get some space ops going on. I don't know, man. I don't really necessarily have a business goal for Centrifuge from the standpoint of it needs to be this many classes. We need to have this much revenue. Like, we're not running it from a traditional. Yeah, we're not traded publicly. This is not, we don't have shareholders and things like that, right? So we're just really focused on how can we make the biggest impact within our profession in a manner that meets cops where they are, right? So we have found that while we do have a facility, we have found that meeting cops where they're at and traveling to their ranges is the biggest way to affect national change. And we just want to be, we just want to be relevant. There will be a time, there will be a place and time where our POIs and our TTPs and the company itself will not be the most relevant thing. And I hope by that point, that evolution, I hope by that juncture we realize that, and we're able to just be like, all right, we did our part, right? We did what we came to do to make the profession better. But I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. Hopefully, with us being data driven and staying on top of trends and patterns. If you're doing that, you're relevant. If you're only basing your POIs, your points of instruction, off of your personal experience, then at some point that has a shelf life, right? So you did something 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago, right? If you're only teaching to that becomes antiquated. So I feel like we have a model that keeps us abreast. But to answer your question, I mean, we just want to affect change and make the profession better than we found it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, we hope.
Yeah. And to finish, finally, what's your perspective about Chimera and our relationship, our partnership? It's been 3 years now. I think we've been in touch.
3 years. I will say that that we get asked to partner quite a bit with various companies in the U.S. and all over the world. And there is only one company that we're partnered with for the VCB material and the other material that we have, and that's Chimera.
Why?
The level of the level of professionalism, the skill set that you guys are bringing to the table, the mission that you have expressed, the like-mindedness of, hey, here is a problem that needs a bespoke or solution that is addressing this singularity versus one thing that just this panacea where it's just like, hey, just put this on and it'll solve all of your problems, which we know doesn't work, right? We know that's not a viable solution. We have continued to be impressed with the content. We've been continued to be impressed with the POIs and what you guys are doing, but really more than that, it's the people, right? So we were just talking about that, the connection that people have, and just finishing up with the range, and we had guys from various federal agencies and state and local, and good guys have a way of finding each other, right? And so for me, it is important that guys be able to shoot. It is important that guys be able to instruct. It is important that guys have experience. It is important that guys have the ability to understand the mission, but encompassing all of that, the umbrella above all of that is you just got to be a good dude. And we have, I've appreciated our relationship. I've found it to be beneficial, bouncing ideas off you, and when you guys come stateside and seeing the problems that you're facing that are unique to your side of the world. And what's interesting is two very different cultures, but when we look at violence of action and kinetic problems and the struggles that good guys are facing, there's a lot of crossover, right? There's a lot that interleaves or
connection.
That lays over. So, there's a ton of training companies out there, right? But I am proud of our continued relationship. And I made a post the other day on Instagram, and it was like, I'm proud of our partnership. But more than that, it's just morphed into our friendship, right? And that's what's really cool about this line of work is you meet guys and you'll start off in a very professional setting, and then over time it evolves beyond that, and that's incredible. That's good stuff, man.
Thank you.
Of course, dude.
Thank you for your trust.
It's always great. It's always awesome having you guys coming out here, and I will say, like, thank you for the confidence in what we're doing, that you would travel all the way from France. It's not a quick trip, right? To come over here, and it's an expense both in time and logistics and resources. And I know you guys are busy, and you guys did a phenomenal. You guys are always such high performers in every class that you come, and it speaks to the level of training that you guys are getting back in France. It's always rad having you guys out, man.
We try our best.
No, dude, you guys do great. You just do great. Thank you.
And it's been several times we fly here over the pond, but we're gonna fix the fact that you have to come in Europe as well.
Oui.
For sure.
My one French word.
We will work on
Oui.
it. Thank you, Will.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.